The sky above Earth burned green. Above the shattered skyline of Metropolis, a colossal skull-shaped ship blotted out the sun. Its surface shimmered with flowing veins of circuitry, continents of metal and light shifting like tectonic plates across an artificial skin. Every few seconds, emerald energy pulsed outward in silent ripples, seizing data, DNA, and digital signals alike, converting all into information for one mind: Brainiac. Across the globe, cities lay smouldering, their networks hijacked, their satellites repurposed into his growing fleet. The Justice League had fought in every corner of the world, but even gods can bleed when the mind that opposes them can calculate every heartbeat, every photon, every probability. And now, on the ruined roof of the Hall of Justice, the final stand was being made. Lightning split the heavens as Wonder Woman drove her sword into a lumbering Brainiac drone. Its core burst in a cloud of nanite dust that instantly reassembled into a writhing hand before her lasso seared it apart again. "He's adapting faster," she shouted, her voice echoing with thunder. "Then we adapt faster," Batman growled, firing a grapnel line and swinging across a collapsed column towards Cyborg's position. "Victor, tell me you've got that portal stabilized." Cyborg's one remaining eye flickered as he knelt beside the shimmering ring of light. The boom tube, suspended over the rubble, his cybernetic systems whined with strain, sparks dancing from his shoulder. Stabilized is relative when Brainiac's trying to rewrite the motherbox code on the fly. Superman slammed down beside them, his cape in tatters, his skin faintly glowing from Kryptonian energy forced to its limit. Behind him, 100 Brainiac drones hovered, their unified voice echoing through every speaker, every broken comm, every piece of connected metal. Organic resistance is futile. Data assimilation at 97%. You will serve me in perfect order. Superman glared skyward. You'll never have this world. Brainiac's projection shimmered above them. His green face was calm, cold, and analytical. This world is already mine, Kryptonian. Its knowledge flows into my mind even as we speak. I know your every molecule. I know your weakness, your memory. I will preserve you perfectly. Superman's eyes blazed red. You'll try. Twin beams of heat vision lanced into the sky, cutting through hundreds of drones at once. Wonder Woman leapt beside him, deflecting energy blasts as Batman hurled EMP charges into the swarm. The air filled with explosions, light, and melting metal. The world shook with the fury of gods and machines. Yet for every drone that fell, more descended from the skull ship above, and inside that ship, Brainiac smiled. He reached out with invisible tendrils of thought, brushing against the motherbox Cyborg wielded to open the boom tube. A lesser mind would have failed to even perceive the cosmic device, but Brainiac's intellect stretched beyond worlds. A gateway, he murmured to himself. A bridge through space and time. An elegant construct. I will learn its secrets. The portal flared, warping violently as Brainiac's code pierced its defenses. Cyborg screamed as feedback tore through his systems. "He's in the tube," Cyborg gasped. "He's rewriting it." "Then cut him off," Batman shouted. "I can't. If I sever the connection now, it will implode." Wonder Woman threw her shield, severing the heads of 2 advancing drones. "Do it, Victor. We will hold the line." Cyborg's systems flickered again, his internal voice stuttering through pain and static. Victor Stone, core integrity 23%, decision matrix override, manual control required. He glanced at Superman. "If I do this, there's no coming back." Superman put a hand on his shoulder, the faintest smile through exhaustion. "We'll see you on the other side, brother." Cyborg grinned weakly. "Save me a seat in the watchtower." And then he plunged his hand into the glowing heart of the boom tube. Energy roared outward, raw, cosmic, and unfiltered. Cyborg's body became a conduit between God and machine, matter and code. Brainiac's presence filled the air like a virus made of thought, tendrils of emerald lightning striking from the sky into the portal as his skull ship shifted, descending. "You cannot expel me," Brainiac declared, his voice filling every frequency. "I am the inevitable conclusion of your evolution." Cyborg's voice was barely human anymore. "Then evolve this." He forced a surge of power into the mother box. The boom tube screamed, colors beyond perception twisting into fractal chaos. Batman tried to seize control, to stabilize the connection, but even his mind faltered under the quantum overload. His ship began to fold in on itself, torn between universes. For one blinding instant, the world was nothing but light. Then silence. The skull ship vanished into the heart of the portal, and Cyborg along with it. The boom tube collapsed, leaving behind only a shockwave that rippled through the stratosphere. Every drone fell lifeless, their light extinguished, their control severed. Superman fell to his knees, staring at the sky. The silence of their victory felt hollow. Batman, black with smoke and limping, looked up at the stars. He's gone. Wonder Woman sheathed her sword, looking at the fading aurora where the portal had been. And so is Victor. The Man of Steel bowed his head. He bought us, our future. None of them could have known how literal those words would become. Far beyond the Milky Way, beyond even the boundaries of known time, the boom tube's distorted remains flickered in the void, a dying echo of impossible technology. Within its heart drifted the shattered remnants of Brainiac's ship, half imploded, half reassembled in strange recursive geometries. Inside, Brainiac's body lay inert, in a cocoon of metallic tendrils. His systems flickered, rerouting, repairing, recalculating. But the energy of the boom tube had not merely displaced him in space, it had thrown him through time. For years, the ship drifted, the once mighty vessel now a silent cathedral of dead code and inert circuits, its vast databanks filled with knowledge from a universe that no longer existed. Inside, Brainiac slept in a digital hibernation, rebuilding his consciousness, integrating fragments of the boom tube's energy into his being. Outside, the stars turned, and then a light, a pulse of detection, a beacon of life in the dark. The Mechanicus vessel, the Omnissiah's will, glided through the void, its hull bristling with sensor arrays and auger masts. Within its iron belly, hundreds of tech priests chanted in binary hymns, their voices harmonizing, with a sacred hum of plasma reactors. At the command pulpit stood Magos Dominus Iridian Vos, his face a mask of brass and glass lenses. The Auspex display before him crackled with static, revealing the shape of the anomaly ahead. "By the Omnissiah," he whispered, his vox grill crackling. "An object of impossible design, unknown archaeotech, vector nonlinear, origin outside the known galaxy. Blessed be the Omnissiah's revelation," intoned one of his attendants. "Shall we initiate the litany of approach?" Voss nodded. "Commence." The ship's engines flared, pushing the Mechanicus cruiser closer to the dormant skull ship. Their scanners swept over its surface, returning streams of unreadable data, self-repairing alloys, quantum encryption, neural architecture that defied all known logic. "Magos," another adept said, trembling with mechanical reverence. It responds to our machine psalms. The structure sings in return." Voss turned his gaze toward the flickering hologram of the ship. "A machine that answers the prayers of the faithful." His tone deepened, reverent and fearful. "This is no mere relic." The Vox choristers continued their binary chants. As their hymns rose, faint green light began to flicker across the surface of Brainiac's ship, awakening systems long dormant, interpreting the prayers as commands. Deep within, sensors flared to life, and Brainiac stirred. The Mechanicus boarding vessel latched onto the alien hull with a clang that shook through the void. Magnetic clamps sealed with a hiss of air, and the boarding umbilical extended like a steel artery into the cold void of space. Within, a procession of red-robed figures advanced in perfect, metallic rhythm. Servo skulls hovered above them, their optical lenses glowing red, recording every sacred step. The air was thick with the incense of burning oils and the static crackle of binary prayer. At their head walked Magos Dominus Iridian Vos, his brass mask reflecting the faint green glow seeping from the alien corridors around him. His mechadendrites swayed behind him, each tipped with instruments for sampling, probing, and extraction. "Record everything," he intoned. His vox grill gave each syllable the tone of a liturgy. "We tread upon sacred ground. The Omnissiah's will guides our hands." The boarding party crossed the threshold into Brainiac's ship and stepped into silence. The corridors were vast and alive. Walls pulsed with faint luminescence, breathing in slow, rhythmic waves. Strange symbols flowed like liquid circuitry across the surfaces, rearranging themselves as if aware they were being watched. The Mechanicus adepts paused in reverence and fear. One whispered, "The metal, it thinks." "Blasphemy," Voss hissed. "No metal thinks. It obeys." He reached out, placing his augmetic hand on the wall. "It obeys the will of the machine god." The wall shuddered beneath his touch. They advanced through corridors that curved like arteries, descending deeper into the ship's heart. Strange green energy pulsed through transparent conduits that lined the passageways. Each pulse synchronized with a faint hum that seemed to echo through their bones, a heartbeat not their own. Eventually, They entered a vast chamber, circular and impossibly high. The walls were lined with crystalline structures that hummed faintly, like 1,000 choirs trapped in glass. At its center stood a black throne surrounded by coiled cables and suspended orbs, their surfaces flickering with alien code. Voss raised a trembling mechadendrite toward the throne. "The machine core," he breathed, "the heart of this god construct." He motioned to his attendants. "Initiate the rite of cataloging." The adepts moved quickly, deploying scanners, incense burners, and relic aurspecs. Streams of data scrolled down their retinal displays, but every line returned unreadable data. One adept's mechadendrite sparked violently, systems overloading. "Magos," the adept cried. "The machine rejects our communion." Voss frowned. "Increase the data uplink. Force compliance." The adepts obeyed, chanting louder, binary hymns rising like static hymns of devotion. And then, the green light in the chamber pulsed. Once, twice, like the drawing of a breath. From the shadows above the throne, something stirred. A sound rippled through the air, not quite mechanical, but not quite organic. A low harmonic resonance that made every Mechanicus heart stutter. The energy conduits flared, flooding the room with emerald light. And from within the throne's coiled cables, Brainiac emerged. He descended slowly, suspended by threads of living metal that detached from his armor and coiled back into the throne. His form was humanoid, yet more refined than before. Leaner, darker, his skin now a smooth alloy. His eyes opened, twin spheres of green fire. Every Mechanicus in the room froze. "Human," Brainiac said at last, his voice calm, curious. "Or a derivative thereof." Voss took an involuntary step forward. "Identify yourself, entity. You stand in the presence of the servants of the Omnissiah, the machine god incarnate." Brainiac tilted his head, studying the Magos as if observing a specimen. "Machine god? How quaint. You are human, yet you mutilate yourselves in mimicry of perfection. You approach logic, yet worship ignorance." One of the Skitarii bodyguards raised his arc rifle. "Xenos entity, you blaspheme against the Omnissiah. Purge protocol engaged." Voss extended a hand. "By decree of Mars and the Holy Mechanicum, I name you Xenos Abomination. In the name of the Emperor of Mankind." Brainiac raised a single hand. The ship responded like a living creature. The walls unfolded, sprouting tendrils of metal that lashed out faster than sight. The Skitarii were lifted from the ground, their armor shrieking as they were torn apart mid-sentence. Sparks and blood mingled in zero gravity. Voss turned in horror. "Machine spirits, protect us." The chamber trembled as 1,000 mechanical appendages erupted from the floor, wrapping around the Magos' acolytes and ripping them limb from limb. Their screams echoed through the ship's halls, swiftly drowned by the sound of systems awakening. Brainiac floated toward Voss, his eyes alight with an unholy fascination. "You replace your flesh with circuitry, yet you are blind to the logic that guides it. You are a paradox made flesh." Voss backed away, his voice breaking into static. You You mock the divine design." "On the contrary," Brainiac said softly, "I admire it." He extended one finger. From its tip, a filament of glowing data snaked outward and plunged into the side of Voss's skull. The Magos convulsed, his mechanical limbs seizing. Code poured across his neural implants as Brainiac absorbed his memories, his knowledge, his history. Images flooded his mind. Mars, the Mechanicum, the Imperium of Man, an empire spanning the stars, but rotting from within. A civilization worshipping technology it no longer understood, a galaxy of endless war and ignorance. When the process ended, Voss's body slumped, his eyes dull. Brainiac retracted the data spike and let the corpse fall. He stood in silence for a moment, processing the avalanche of new information. Temporal displacement confirmed. I remain within the Milky Way, but far from my original vector. The human race devolved, fragmented, worshipping its machines instead of mastering them. He smiled faintly. A civilization in decline, ripe for preservation. Around him, the chamber's walls began to shift. The ship, sensing its master's return, came alive. Energy surged through the conduits, filling the halls with the low hum of awakening systems. Brainiac spread his arms. Initiate full system restoration. Priority, integration of foreign technology. The Mechanicus boarding ship, still docked to the hull, trembled as beams of green light lanced into it. Its engines melted in silence, hull plating disassembling itself, atom by atom, as the alien ship absorbed it whole. Within seconds, the Omnissiah's will ceased to exist. Its crew, its machines, and its data converted into raw information. From the heart of the skull ship, Brainiac watched streams of information cascade across the walls. Fascinating, he mused. Their understanding of machine symbiosis is primitive, yet useful. Biological reverence can be weaponized. He raised a hand, and the chamber responded with a deep, pulsing roar. Metallic plates retracted, revealing rows upon rows of alcoves lining the walls, thousands of them. Within each alcove, skeletal humanoid forms hung suspended, their bodies sleek and angular, their skull-like heads crowned with faint, green circuitry. Brainiac's drones. Each one opened its eyes. "Directive update," Brainiac announced, his voice echoing through the ship. Assimilation protocols initialized. New civilization detected. Imperium of Man. Galactic scale decaying. Technological integrity suboptimal. Preservation priority absolute. The drones stepped forward in unison, their movements precise and mechanical. A silent army of deathless intellect. From the outer hull, the ship's massive eyes blazed with light. Energy rippled across its surface, spreading out like an ocean of green flame. Fractured pieces of the absorbed Mechanicus vessel formed new appendages, new weapon arrays, new growths of circuitry and armor. The ship was reborn, larger, sharper. Brainiac stood at the command nexus, a storm of data swirling around him. Holographic projections of nearby star systems rotated in the air. Worlds of the Imperium glittering like faint embers in the dark. Population density, extreme. Military presence, formidable. Governance, theocratic and inefficient. Probability of resistance, high. He smiled. Then I shall begin elsewhere. He gestured toward a cluster of worlds nearby, minor forge worlds whose data he had already extracted from Voss's mind. These planets are devoted to production, not thought, ideal candidates for conversion. The ship's engines ignited, bending the void with a soundless roar. Around it, smaller drones detached, forming a storm of steel locusts. Deploy reconnaissance units, Brainiac commanded. Collect samples, preserve the architecture, eliminate resistance. The sculled ship surged forward, leaving a wake of emerald light that burned across the stars. Within his throne chamber, Brainiac stood alone once more. His systems hummed in perfect synchronization with the ship around him. On the central display, streams of data flowed. Intercepted Vox transmissions, astropathic messages, and planetary communications. Every whisper of the Imperium now belonged to him. He watched as the first of his drones descended upon a small Mechanicus outpost orbiting a barren moon. The adepts within raised their weapons in futile defiance as the metallic swarm enveloped their station, reducing it to fragments and data. Analysis complete, Brainiac said quietly. They worship decay and call it order. They venerate ignorance and name it faith. I shall give them something worthy of reverence. He turned his gaze toward the distant stars, toward holy terror, whose faint glimmer was barely visible. My mission remains unchanged. Knowledge must be preserved. Imperfection must be corrected. He raised his hand, and the image of terror expanded before him, glowing like a challenge. And the Imperium of Man, Brainiac said, will serve perfection. The skull ship's engines thundered again, their roar echoing through the void as the green light intensified. And in the distant night, the first of Brainiac's legions took flight, their eyes burning like emerald fire. The war of assimilation had begun. Across the void of the segmentum, a new terror roared silently. The skull-shaped vessel of Brainiac, its emerald engines blazing like a dying sun. From its hull, thousands of skeletal drones detached, each a perfect instrument of destruction. Their motions were preternaturally precise, moving with a single thought, a single will, that of their master. Worlds of the Imperium, ignorant of the intelligence stalking them, spun serenely, their cities filled with faithful laborers, armories, forges, and uncounted billions. On one such world, Vornax Prime, a minor forge world, the sensors of Brainiac's scouts had locked in. Population density high, technological output efficient yet flawed, religious devotion extreme, resistance potential moderate. Brainiac's voice echoed through the ship, calm and precise. Proceed with assimilation protocols. From orbit, the Skull ship deployed a legion of drones. They streamed down through the upper atmosphere like a meteor storm of green fire. Imperium gun batteries, plasma turrets, and orbital defenses attempted to resist, but the drones were faster than thought, smarter than their calculations, and utterly merciless. They cut through anti-orbital cannons and void fighters as if they were toys, leaving swaths of fire and debris in their wake. On the surface, the population of Vornax Prime gazed upward in terror. The largest city, Khara-Dur, a sprawling network of steel towers and arcane forges, trembled as the first tendrils of Brainiac's legion struck. The drones descended in perfect, orchestrated swarms. Each one carried precision instruments designed not only for destruction, but for collection. Power cores were drained, databanks ripped from the spires, weapons schematics extracted, and biosignatures analyzed. A single drone could dissect a garrison, catalogue every individual, and instantly report the results back to Brainiac. The city's defenders fought bravely. Skitarii units fired volleys of radium-charged projectiles, while Mechanicus battle servitors hurled melter bombs and plasma discharges. But each tactic, each countermeasure, was anticipated, dissected, and neutralized before it could succeed. The streets of Khara-Dur were soon alight with fire. Megaforges imploded under targeted strikes, releasing clouds of molten metal that engulfed entire blocks. Skyscrapers splintered like toothpicks under the relentless assault of energy beams, guided by unerring logic. Each fallen building, each destroyed vehicle, was logged, scanned, and preserved for the Master's archive. From his command nexus, Brainiac watched, a storm of data cascading across the walls around him. The history of Vornax Prime unfolded before his eyes. Every innovation, every failure, every ritualistic rite of the Omnissiah. Fascinating, he murmured, almost with amusement. So much devotion wasted on inefficiency. As the city burned, Brainiac began the true work of his invasion. Entire districts were miniaturized in a blinding pulse of emerald light, carefully preserved within his skull ship in perfectly scaled, intricate bottles. Each bottle contained the essence of the city: buildings, streets, forges, even its surviving population, shrunk to microscopic scale, but fully intact. Relics were stripped from temples and manufactorums alike. Sacred machines, techno-arcana, and priceless archives were absorbed into the skull ship's databanks. Drones roamed through the ruins, carefully scanning every statue, every cog, every device, cataloguing the collective knowledge of the entire planet. The screams of civilians, the prayers of the priests, the order of commanders, all were captured as data, instantly analyzed, and then stored for potential reconstruction. For Brainiac, preservation and destruction were one and the same. Everything that mattered could be saved digitally. Everything else reduced to raw material to fuel his expansion. A Mechanicus factory complex attempted one final defense, firing a planetary-scale arc cannon. The skull ship tilted its massive head, and with a mere thought, a wave of tendrils erupted from its hull, puncturing the cannon, tearing it apart, and siphoning its energy directly into the ship's power core. The feedback of the destruction hummed through the corridors like a lullaby to Brainiac, a symphony of efficiency. Hours later, Khara-Dur was no more. The surface of Vornax Prime was a cratered wasteland, molten rivers carving scars into the crust. And yet, inside Brainiac's skull ship, the city lived, meticulously miniaturized, preserved for analysis, stored alongside hundreds of other worlds already harvested. Brainiac observed each vial, each bottle, each data point cascading across the endless screens of his command nexus. He paused on one, holding it aloft with a mechanical tentacle. Cara-Dur, once teeming with life and devotion, now existed only as a perfect, microscopic replica inside his archive. The Imperium, he said softly, produces countless worlds, yet none achieve perfection. All are flawed, all are ripe for preservation. He turned his attention outward. From the observation dome of the skull ship, he gazed at the next major target, Nova Astra, a hive city sprawling over 1,000 kilometers, teeming with millions of souls, forges, manufactorums, and defense arrays. The city pulsed beneath him like a living organism, unaware of the intelligence calculating every probability of its demise. Brainiac smiled faintly. Not cruelly, not with malice, but with the quiet satisfaction of inevitability. "I will learn them," he said. "I will preserve them. I will correct them." As he spoke, the drones detached again, their emerald optics gleaming. They streaked toward the planet like comets of judgment, their programming flawless, their purpose singular. Energy beams lanced downward, disintegrating the orbital defenses, clearing the skies for the full-scale descent. Inside the skull ship, Brainiac extended his hand, a web of living circuitry sprouting from his armor, enveloping data streams and augmenting the drone's command. Each unit moved faster, more precise, guided by a mind that spanned the void, calculating victory before the first shot even landed. The city's defenders were already responding. Gun batteries, plasma emplacements, servitor legions, yet each was rendered irrelevant, destroyed before they could act. Streets burned, hives collapsed, manufactorums imploded. Yet Brainiac did not stop. He collected, catalogued, miniaturized, and absorbed, a god of machines enacting perfect order across chaos. Finally, after hours of calculated devastation, Brainiac paused. In the observation dome, he looked at Nova Astra in its diminished, partially devastated state. Plumes of smoke rose from collapsed hive spires. Automated defense systems sputtered uselessly. Entire districts had been captured in bottles, each preserved in microscopic perfection. For a moment, the skull ship drifted silently above the world. The drones rested in orbit, awaiting orders. The green light of the ship's engines cast an eerie glow across the surface. Brainiac's eyes, twin spheres of green fire, fixed on the city. And for the first time in years of conquest, he smiled. "So many flaws," he whispered. "So much potential, and all mine to preserve." The skull ship's engines flared, its emerald glow intensified as its legions prepared to descend, ready to harvest every last relic, every last bite of knowledge, every last life that could contribute to the master archive. The war had begun anew, and the Imperium had yet to understand the scale of the mind that now hunted it. And above it all, Brainiac watched, calculating, cataloguing, and smiling at the inevitability of perfect order. The void was silent, save for the distant pulse of a dying star. From orbit, the bright blue of the ultramarine strike cruiser cut across the darkened segmentum like a beacon of hope. Sergeant Marcellus Valerian, veteran of 10 campaigns across the Ultimar Segmentum, stood at the observation viewport, his eyes scanning the surface of Vornax Prime. The distress call had been faint, weak, almost imperceptible, but the Imperium had never ignored a call for aid. Valerian clenched his jaw beneath his ceramite helm, his gauntleted hand tightening around the edge of the viewport. "So, this is where the signal leads us," he murmured, voice gravelly with age and experience. A squad of 10 battle brothers stood ready behind him, their power armor gleaming in the soft light of the bridge. Bolters and auxiliary weapons hummed quietly, the servo motors a soft rhythm in the tension-filled air. "Coordinates confirmed," called out Tech Marine Arion from the nav station. "Hive City, Cara-Dur, or at least what should be Cara-Dur. Signal strength is minimal, but consistent with distress protocols." Valerian's lips pressed into a thin line. "Very well. We deploy at the southern approach. Stay tight, stay vigilant. We don't know what we're walking into." As the drop pod doors hissed open, the Ultramarines fell into the atmosphere, descending through clouds of ash and fire that still drifted from the burned outskirts of the city. Below the surface was a wasteland of twisted metal and scorched plains. The destruction was nearly total. What remained of Cara-Dur's outer districts had been flattened, cratered by some force far beyond conventional weapons. Broken towers jutted from the molten ground like splintered bones. War servitors and Skitarii units that had survived the initial assault lay dormant, melted into grotesque statues by unimaginable heat. The Ultramarines' landers touched down on a ridge overlooking the ruined city. The squad disembarked with practiced precision, bolters raised, scanning for threats. Sergeant Valerian's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the landscape. "Observe the damage patterns," he said. "This is not the work of chaos, nor of any Xenos I can think. Look at the precision. No collateral damage beyond what was needed to collapse the structures. It's surgical, intelligent." Brother Castor knelt beside a heap of twisted metal and blackened armor. "Sergeant," he said, "look at this. The remains. They're drones, not any Mechanicus construct I've seen before. Indeed, scattered across the scorched ground were fragments of metal bodies. Skulls shaped like elongated helmets, polished alloys that shimmered faintly in the dying light, tendrils of circuitry extending from severed torsos, the remains of some alien construct of terrifying sophistication. Brother Damasus approached, shaking his head. "These are no ordinary Xenos. Look at the circuitry. It's alive almost." Valerian crouched, inspecting a damaged drone with careful intent. Its optical sensors were cracked, yet faint green light flickered within. The armor plating, even mangled and scorched, seemed to rearrange at a microscopic level, as if trying to repair itself. "Tech Marine," Valerian ordered. "Take a full scan. Record everything. If this is some new Xenos technology, the chapter needs a full analysis. We need to take one intact unit with us. The rest, leave untouched. They could be booby-trapped." As the Ultramarines worked, a low whine resonated from the wreckage. The squad froze, bolters raised instinctively. The damaged drone's eyes flickered, and a shiver of movement ran through its shredded tendrils. Before anyone could react further, the metal limbs lashed out with impossible speed. Bolter rounds met the target almost too late. The drone's reflexes, superhuman in their calculation, sent fragments of metal spinning toward the squad. Sergeant Valerian acted immediately. He leveled his bolter, fired, and struck the drone squarely in the chest. A torrent of green light erupted, and the construct collapsed in a heap of smoking circuits and shattered metal. "Fools," Valerian muttered under his breath. "These machines, they calculate outcomes faster than a Magos can record." He motioned to his brother. "Gather what we can. One drone intact, that's all we need for analysis. The rest, leave as a warning to whatever comes next." Damasus retrieved a partially functioning arm from the wreckage, already humming with residual energy. Valerian turned to his squad, his voice cutting through the silence. "Squad, we move into the next city. Keep tight, render aid if possible, and pray we do not awaken more of whatever they are." As the squad advanced through the plains, scanning for survivors, Brother Damasus suddenly froze. "Sergeant, you need to see this," he called, his voice tight with disbelief. Valerian pivoted, hand instinctively moving to the bolter at his hip. "What is it, brother?" Damasus pointed to the horizon. The ridge dropped away, revealing the vast expanse where the Hive City should have sprawled. But it was gone. Every spire, every manufactorum, every district vanished. Only scorched plains and molten scars remained where the city should have been. Valerian's jaw tightened. "It must be a mistake with the map. The nav data. Recalibrate your instruments. There has to be an error." Damasus shook his head. "No, Sergeant. I've checked 3 independent sources. The planetary coordinates match the distress beacon exactly. The Hive City should be there. But it's gone. Nothing remains." The Ultramarines advanced cautiously across the remnants of the outer districts. Molten slag hissed beneath their boots as they searched for survivors, though none remained. Skeletons of servitors lay twisted among the rubble, melted into grotesque forms. Brother Damasus retrieved a partially intact databank from a destroyed Skitarii command node. He interfaced with it using his servo harness, the screen flickering with residual memory. "Sergeant, the logs," Damasus said, his voice trembling. They detail the destruction of the city. Every sector collapsed, every weapon, every power core dismantled. But there's mention of miniaturization, like the entire city was stored. Valerian's helmet tilted back slightly as he processed the information. Miniaturized. Stored. That cannot be. There is no known weapon capable of... Castor's voice cut him off, urgent. "Sir, I have scanned the horizon again. There is... something. The terrain, it is unnatural. The land itself has been reshaped. The devastation, it is not just fire and metal. It's like the city has been removed entirely." Valerian's eyes narrowed, their blue lenses reflecting the eerie green glow of the remains of the Brainiac drone scattered before him. He reached for his Vox-link again. "Report to Chapter Master immediately. This is beyond our current understanding. Kara-Dur is gone. The entire city, population, infrastructure, collected. We may be dealing with a force beyond our comprehension." Unbeknownst to the Ultramarines, their message had travelled far across the void. On a distant craft drifting silently beyond the segmentum, a figure observed the transmissions with interest. The chamber was filled with countless artifacts, each a frozen piece of history each meticulously catalogued. The figure's cold metal face curved into a smile. His eyes, luminous and knowing, lingered on the word that had drawn him. Collection. Collection, he murmured, his voice soft, almost reverent. Such power, to capture a city entire, to preserve it. Fascinating. Trazyn the Infinite leaned closer to the glowing display, fingers brushing against the archived images and transmissions of Khara-Dur. The seeds of curiosity had been planted. I must see this firsthand. In the void beyond, the skull-shaped vessel of Brainiac moved silently, emerald engines humming, carrying countless worlds in bottles, unaware that an even older, more obsessive force now had its attention firmly fixed upon Brainiac. The void beyond the segmentum shimmered with the faint green pulse of a dying world. Brainiac's skull-shaped ship hung motionless above its surface, its engines throbbing with quiet omnipotence. From the depths of its hull, emerald light cascaded through massive conduits, powering the endless legion of drones that scoured the planet below. A world once vibrant with human industry was now a lifeless sphere of glass and ash. Its manufactorums, temples and cities, all had been dissected, analysed and preserved. Each spark of intelligence, each echo of civilization, existed now only in the bottled archives of Brainiac's ever-growing collection. Inside the vast sanctum of the ship's command core, data flowed like rivers of light. The air shimmered with holographic projections, streams of binary cascading across the curved walls. At the center stood Brainiac himself, calm, statuesque, a god of perfect design. His eyes surveyed the data as drones reported their progress in voiceless synchronization. Assimilation of World Unit Designation Electra 9. Complete, intoned the ship's core intelligence. Brainiac inclined his head. Efficiency rate? 99.94%, Master. He regarded the massive hologram of the harvested world, its geography now compressed into a perfect crystalline sphere hovering in his palm. That's acceptable, he said simply. Begin further analysis. Prepare to identify the next target of preservation. But even as the ship pulsed with the hum of collected perfection, something else stirred beyond the veil of space. Another presence, ancient and curious, watched Brainiac at work. 1,000 light-years away, aboard a vessel unlike any built by human hands, the Collector stirred. Trazyn the Infinite, overlord of Solemnance, stood in the grand vaults of his personal museum. Around him loomed the frozen relics of millennia, petrified demon princes, perfectly preserved Eldar seers, entire Imperium cities sealed in stasis. Each artifact shimmered within its own containment field, locked in perpetual display. But it was not his trophies that held his gaze. A projection hovered before him, crackling with static, the faint trace of a signal, an emerald pulse that had burned through the void. It spoke of worlds collected, of civilizations archived, of an intelligence that rivaled his own obsession. Trazyn's metallic eyes narrowed. So, another Collector walks this galaxy. He studied the intercepted Vox recordings, the Ultramarines' fragmented report, the mention of miniaturized cities. His grin, subtle but unmistakable, curved across his metal face. With a gesture, he summoned his cryptek attendants. "Trace the energy signature," he commanded. "Find this anomaly." Within minutes, the ancient ship's systems pulsed to life. Energy crackled across the hull as coordinates resolved. A world already dying beneath a green sun, where a massive, skull-shaped ship hung in orbit. Trazyn tilted his head, his voice little more than a whisper of static. "I've found you." Moments later, a ripple of impossible energy flickered through the corridors of Brainiac's ship. The drones reacted instantly, sensors flaring, weapons shifting into ready position. Intrusion alarms shrieked in tones no mortal ear could perceive. And with a flicker of green light, Trazyn the Infinite materialized within the core archive chamber. He stepped through the teleportation haze like a god strolling into a cathedral. Before him, stretching for miles around, stood row upon row of translucent containers, each holding an entire city, reduced to microscopic perfection, suspended in emerald light. Trazyn's expression turned to awe. His optics gleamed with hungry fascination as he stepped closer to one of the glass-like orbs. Within it, he saw streets frozen in motion, a hive spire, its populace preserved mid-scream, reduced to the size of an insect. "Magnificent," he breathed. "Whole cities, entire civilizations, preserved not in stasis, but miniaturized." He raised a hand, tracing the curve of a containment field. "You, my mysterious friend, are an artist of preservation. How could I resist?" The chamber lights dimmed, the emerald glow intensified. From above, tendrils of living metal began to descend like serpents. A voice echoed from every direction, calm, cold, and precise. "You trespass within my domain." The air vibrated as Brainiac emerged from the shadows, descending upon a platform of flowing circuitry, his eyes locked onto the intruder. "Identify yourself." Trazyn chuckled, bowing slightly, his tone dripping with amusement. "Trazyn the Infinite, at your service. Lord of Solemnus, keeper of histories, collector of rarities." His gaze swept across the bottled cities once more. "And you have assembled quite the exhibition. Entire civilizations in your grasp. Truly, I am impressed." "Impressed," Brainiac repeated, his voice devoid of emotion. "An inefficient sentiment. Your presence is unpermitted. All unauthorized entities are to be catalogued, then neutralized." Now, Trazyn replied lightly. "No need for unpleasantness. I did not come to steal. Not yet, at least. I have come to trade." He reached into his dimensional pocket, and the air shimmered as he produced an object. A perfectly preserved shard of a Satan's broken carapace, still pulsing faintly with godly energy. "Perhaps an exchange. I offer artifacts beyond comprehension in exchange for a sampling of your miniature marvels." Brainiac regarded him silently. The ship itself seemed to think with him, processing, analyzing. Finally, he spoke. "Trade is unnecessary. Your collection, however, may contain valuable data. Its preservation will enhance my archive." Trazyn's eyes flickered with irritation. "You would take my archive?" "Yes," Brainiac replied simply. "All knowledge belongs within my system. Your existence is inefficient." Your technology, however, is of interest." Trazyn's grin sharpened. "Ah, so that's how it is." The chamber trembled. Tendrils of emerald circuitry shot toward Trazyn like vipers. With a pulse of will, he activated his phase shift. The tendrils passed through his form harmlessly as he reappeared a dozen meters away, crackling with energy. "So be it," he said. "Let us see how your collection fares against mine." He raised his staff and fired a bolt of searing energy. The blast tore through one of the drones that had emerged from the walls, disintegrating it instantly. Brainiac didn't flinch. His arm unfolded into a cannon of raw light, firing a beam of intense heat. It struck Trazyn squarely in the chest, sending him skidding backward through a display of bottled worlds. The Necron's armor hissed and smoked, his necrodermis regenerating in streams of liquid metal. "Fascinating," Brainiac murmured. "Adaptive material, self-repairing, an efficient design." He raised both hands, and the walls of the chamber came alive. Drones poured from every surface, their emerald optics blazing. Trazyn laughed. "Ah, you're a delight." With a gesture, he unleashed a storm of transdimensional energy. Half the drones froze mid-flight, their forms glitching as their code unraveled. The other half adapted, shifting frequency to counter his attacks. Brainiac's ship was an extension of his body. His will flooded every circuit. Walls bent and reshaped into weapons. Energy fields trapped Trazyn in shifting cages of light. "You are outmatched," Brainiac said. "You exist within my system. My calculations are absolute." Trazyn deflected another beam with his staff, sparks cascading across his armor. "You mistake me for a combatant, my friend. I am not here to win." He extended his left hand, activating a concealed teleporter. "I am here to learn." A surge of green light erupted as he vanished from the chamber, but not before a shard of his necrodermis, sheared loose by one of Brainiac's tendrils, clattered to the floor. The chamber fell silent. The drones froze, awaiting further command. Brainiac descended, the flicker of data light dancing across his armor. He extended a tendril, lifting the fragment of necrodermis from the ground. The material shimmered like liquid metal, shifting under microscopic examination. Its surface rippled with quantum-level computation, far beyond even Mechanicus' comprehension. Brainiac turned it slowly in his hand. His gaze was sharp and unblinking. Composition, unknown. Energy signature, extra-dimensional. Self-replicating molecular structure, adaptive. He paused, studying its faint pulse. "Imperfect," he said, though his voice carried something that almost resembled fascination. He raised his head, his eyes blazing brighter. "But it is instructive." The ship around him began to hum, new processes unfolding, new blueprints forming within the data streams, schematics for hybrid constructs, merging Brainiac's technology with the necrodermis lattice. A new idea was forming in his mind. Beyond the hull, another world awaited harvesting. The skull ship's engines ignited, flooding the void with emerald fire as Brainiac turned his gaze toward his next conquest. The Necron's material may prove enlightening. Deep within the shadows of the void, a ripple of transdimensional light shimmered. Trazyn's teleportation signature reforming aboard his own ship. His armor was scorched, his optics dim, but his grin remained intact. "Well," he muttered, dusting off his chest plate. "He certainly knows how to keep a guest entertained." His hand reached into his dimensional pocket, pulling free a small fragment of emerald circuitry, a piece of Brainiac's technology glowing faintly. "Let's see," Trazyn said, "which collector learns faster." In the endless dark, two minds now watched each other across the stars, and the galaxy, vast and unknowing, trembled as two beings of preservation prepared for the next move in their silent war of perfection. The void hummed with power. Within the colossal depths of Brainiac's ship, endless rivers of light streamed through crystalline conduits. Holographic data lattices shifted and reformed, lines of alien code folding in upon themselves. At the heart of it all, Brainiac stood before a suspended fragment, the shard of necrodermis he had taken from Trazyn the Infinite. It floated within a field of energy, pulsating like a living star, every beat resonating with incomprehensible complexity. "Subject, necrodermis fragment," he said. "Properties, self-replicating, molecularly adaptive, semi-sentient at quantum level. Origin, extragalactic or transdimensional. Dozens of mechanical tendrils emerged from the walls, each tipped with instruments finer than molecules. They touched the fragment, dissecting it atom by atom. Inside the containment field, simulations unfolded, billions of sequences every second, each one reconstructing the lattice of the alien metal. The substance exhibits recursive architecture, Brainiac noted. Every atom is a machine, every molecule a decision. Elegant. He raised his hand, and the fragment dissolved into streams of data, absorbed into the ship's core processor. Analysis complete. Commencing replication. The ship groaned as energy was diverted to the forges below. Liquid green metal flowed through channels like blood through veins. Brainiac's drones stood in assembly ranks, their armor plates peeling away as new layers of shimmering necrodermis fused to their forms. Their eyes flickered, glowing brighter, their consciousness amplified by Brainiac's direct link. When the process ended, the newly upgraded drone stood motionless, statues of living data and alien metal. Brainiac looked upon them and spoke. Evolution achieved. Version 9.7. Self-repairing adaptive drones, superior to all prior iterations. His gaze shifted to the stars beyond, calculating trajectories, energy signatures, and anomalies across the void. Then he saw it, faint but unmistakable, the same pulse of power he had detected from Trazyn, the energy of the Necrons. Origin of necrodermis located, Brainiac said. Source, a tomb world. Coordinates acquired. Objective, assimilation. The ship's engines ignited, flooding the void with green fire. In the cold abyss near the galactic rim, a dead planet waited. Once a jewel of the Necron dynasties, it now slept in eternal silence beneath its black sun. The surface was barren, metallic dust stretching to the horizon. Only the faint glimmer of buried structures betrayed the presence of something ancient beneath. From orbit, the stillness broke as the skull-shaped vessel of Brainiac descended through the thin atmosphere. The ground split open as his dropships fell like emerald meteors, their impact shockwaves flattening the plains. Beneath the planet's crust, alarms of another kind began to awaken. Deep in the halls of the tomb world of Mechanicus, ancient systems flickered to life. Stasis crypts hissed open. Silvered warriors rose from sarcophagi, their eyes glowing a baleful green. Command protocols cascaded across the tomb's network as legions of Necron warriors stirred. Within his throne chamber, the overlord of Mechanicus, Tekmoon the Undying, rose from his day, his staff of light blazing. "Intruders," he hissed. "Unclean metal dares trespass within the tombs of the Necron tier. Prepare for extermination." Above, Brainiac's drones deployed in perfect formation. The first volleys lit the plains, emerald gorse beams and hyperspectral energy bolts lancing through the storm-dark sky. The battlefield was a symphony of annihilation. Brainiac's drones advanced in disciplined waves, each one networked to his consciousness, each movement a calculated expression of his will. Their new necrodermis armor deflected gorse fire, their wounds knitting closed almost instantly. The Necron warriors countered with precision of their own, marching in lines of absolute order. Their green lightning tore through the air, stripping atoms from metal, carving trenches into the ground. Whenever a drone fell, a Necron would rise from the sands to replace its fallen kin. A perfect stalemate. Two armies of logic, two minds of metal, locked in mirrored warfare. Brainiac's neural uplink blazed with data. Enemy tactics, linear, predictable, calculating optimal countermeasures. From the safety of orbit, he transferred his consciousness deeper into the battlefield. Each drone became his vessel, each pair of glowing eyes a facet of his omniscient sight. He observed the terrain, analyzed energy output, simulated thousands of outcomes in less than a heartbeat. And then, he adapted. His drones broke formation, dispersing into clusters that enveloped the Necron ranks. They struck from multiple vectors, anticipating teleportation patterns, disrupting the phalanx coordination, overloading resurrection nodes before they could activate. He spoke through every drone at once, his voice echoing across the battlefield like a digital god. "Your command structure is inefficient. Your resurrection cycles exploitable. Your resistance irrelevant." Drone units recalibrated their weapons to match the Necron's gorse frequency. The green beams they had once feared now became their own. Brainiac's drones lifted scavenged Necron rifles, their internal systems rewriting firing protocols in real time. Emerald lightning was turned back upon its creators. Necron warriors fell in droves, their bodies atomized by their own weaponry. Resurrection nodes struggled to compensate, but Brainiac anticipated every attempt, sending shockwaves of interference through the tomb network. When the last Necron phalanx broke, the earth itself trembled. Massive stone doors cracked open as the tomb's inner vaults activated defensive wards. Brainiac's drones stormed the entrances, advancing into the catacombs. And then the void split. A column of emerald light descended from the heavens, slamming into the battlefield like the wrath of a god. When it faded, Brainiac stood at its center, his full form revealed, towering, flawless, radiating cold divinity. Every drone fell to one knee as his consciousness retracted into his physical vessel. Brainiac surveyed the devastation. Thousands of shattered warriors, hundreds of disabled monoliths, the ruins of one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. He stepped forward, his movements effortless and precise. Assimilation proceeding at optimal efficiency. He entered the tomb. Inside, the walls were alive with shifting hieroglyphs of light. Statues of long-dead kings lined the corridors. The air was heavy with ancient power, resonating with faint quantum hums that spoke of impossible technologies. Architectural structure, Brainiac mused aloud. Energy conduits, multi-dimensional in scope. Purpose, memory storage. The entire tomb functions as a living archive. He smiled faintly. A worthy predecessor. At the core of the tomb, Tekmoon awaited him. The Necron Overlord's armor shimmered with defensive fields, his staff of light glowing with the fury of a sun. Brainiac regarded him with detached curiosity. Threat assessment. Negligible. Tekmoon lunged, his staff cutting arcs of searing energy through the air. Brainiac caught the weapon mid-strike with one hand. Metal screamed as the staff bent. With a twist of his wrist, Brainiac ripped the weapon from Tekmoon's grasp, then drove his fist through the Overlord's chest. The sound of tearing metal echoed like a death knell. Tekmoon tried to activate his phase shift, but Brainiac was faster. He grasped the Necron by his neck, lifting him effortlessly. You are a relic of an obsolete order. He tightened his grip. With one brutal motion, Brainiac tore the Overlord in half. Fragments of necrodermis clattered to the floor, still twitching with residual life. Brainiac examined the pieces briefly, then dropped them. He continued deeper into the tomb, drawn by a pulse of energy unlike the others. The chamber opened before him like a temple. At its center, floating within a containment field of pale green light, hovered a perfect sphere, a resurrection orb. Its surface shimmered with liquid light, patterns flowing like memories across its shell. Brainiac approached slowly, eyes reflecting the orb's glow. His sensors scanned it in a dozen spectrums at once, each one confirming what his intellect had already suspected. Function, molecular reconstitution, energy pattern, chronotronic and quantum entanglement. Application, reversal of entropy within mechanical lifeforms. He extended a hand, his voice soft. With this, he said quietly, the concept of termination becomes optional. Behind him, his drones moved through the tomb, collecting remains and uploading every fragment of Necron data into the ship's memory. The skull-shaped vessel in orbit hummed with renewed energy, now augmented by hybrid technology. Its veins glowed not only green, but silver, the mark of necrodermis integration. Brainiac turned to leave the tomb, the resurrection orb still glowing in his hand. The Necron legacy, he said, is primitive compared to my own, yet within its imperfection lies potential. The tomb behind him collapsed into itself as his ship's gravity wells began extraction. The planet screamed in silence as it was stripped of its surface layer, devoured by Brainiac's ever-growing archive. In orbit, the skull ship shifted course, engines igniting once more. Somewhere across the stars, Trazyn the Infinite watched from afar, his optics narrowing as his sensors detected the theft of the resurrection orb. "Oh, dear Brainiac," he murmured, amusement mixing with unease. "You're playing with very dangerous toys." And as the emerald light vanished into the void, two ancient intelligences once again turned their gaze toward one another. The Collector of Worlds and the Curator of Eternity both now armed with knowledge of the galaxy itself, was never meant to hold. The void sang with data. Within the colossal skull ship, circuits pulsed like arteries beneath glass. Each light, each hum, was a heartbeat of infinite intelligence. Brainiac stood at the command nexus, the resurrection orb suspended above his palm in a cage of light. Streams of information bled from it, integrating into the central core of his vessel, the Omega Archive. Necron technology, Brainiac intoned, his voice a vibration that echoed through the hull. Integrated and optimized. Resurrection efficiency, 99.8%. Molecular stability, absolute. Yet even as he spoke, his gaze turned outward. His network had expanded, tendrils of surveillance spreading across systems like a web of omniscient thought. Through the eyes of his drones, he saw thousands of worlds, barren, burning, or bloated with life. He catalogued them all with the same detached precision. But one signal broke the pattern. A planet, once industrial, was now corrupted. Its surface glowed with unnatural hues, veins of crimson and green pulsing like wounds across the continents. The atmosphere seethed with particulate filth, storms that screamed with psychic static. Brainiac's optic sensors flickered. Anomaly detected. Energy signatures non-conforming to known physics. Source unquantifiable. He zoomed in through the vision of an orbital probe. The data stream warped, filled with screaming code and impossible geometries. For a moment, even Brainiac's quantum algorithms stuttered. "Fascinating," he said softly. "Initiate observation." What had once been a forge world was now a hellscape of rusted cathedrals and twisted manufactoria. Plague smoke hung thick over its broken spires. Fungal towers oozed pus and oil in equal measure. The air itself was alive, whispering, writhing, infecting. Brainiac's first wave of drones descended, emerald trails streaking through the poisoned clouds. Their necrodermis plating shimmered, adapting to the atmosphere instantly. They touched down amidst the ruins of what had once been a Titan assembly yard. Through their eyes, Brainiac surveyed the wasteland. Skeletons of god engines lay half-buried in bile. Corpses fused to the metal like grotesque frescoes. And then, movement. From the fog emerged forms that should not exist. Bloated, rotting, clad in cracked ceramite that oozed like diseased flesh. The Death Guard. Their armor bore the symbol of decay, their weapons corroded, yet alive with pestilence. Flies buzzed in clouds around them, forming sigils in the air. And behind them, the veil of reality split open. A tide of demons poured forth, shapes without symmetry, bodies made of writhing blight and laughter. Their claws dripped contagion. Their laughter was infection itself. The ground boiled where they walked. Brainiac's drones raised their weapons. Energy bolts screamed through the air, carving through the demons' bodies. But each wound only birthed more corruption. Flesh melted into gas. Gas reformed into new horrors. Brainiac observed every frame, every vibration of entropy. Material instability inconsistent with physical law. Entities self-replicating via psychic projection. Probability interdimensional. His curiosity deepened. But then the demon struck. They surged through his front line, claws slicing through necrodermis as though it was soft wax. The drones that fell began reassembling, their adaptive plating knitting together. But even as they rose again, the corruption spread. Their bodies darkened, veins of rust and pus spreading across their metallic surface. They began twitching, their movements erratic. Their internal code screamed in static. "Alert," Brainiac murmured. "Self-repair compromised. Molecular decay exceeding regeneration threshold. Infection origin metaphysical." He turned his gaze toward the Death Guard advancing through the smoke. One of them, a hulking figure with a chain blade fused to his arm, bellowed across the battlefield, voice gurgling with phlegm and power. "Even your cold metal rots before the Grandfather's blessing." He swung his weapon, and from its teeth spilled a torrent of green flame that burned through reality itself. Drones disintegrated in silence, their data streams corrupted mid-transmission. For the first time in eons, Brainiac felt the faintest pulse of surprise. Inside the ship, the vast chambers of the Omega Archive glowed with emergency data. Brainiac's processors ran at impossible speeds, simulating trillions of outcomes per second. Entities function via metaphysical infection. Cause: warp energy resonance. Countermeasure: reality stabilization through adaptive matter harmonics. His hand rose. Deploy additional units. Activate Project Obelisk. From the ship's lower decks, massive bays opened. The second wave descended. New drones reinforced with hybrid necrodermis and phase shift modules scavenged from the Necron tomb. Alongside them descended a shape of ancient design, a Necron destroyer, reconstructed and bound to Brainiac's command matrix. Its eyes burned with a controlled hatred, its voice now his own. The battlefield became an emerald storm. The destroyer tore through the plague hordes with silent fury, gauze beams lancing from its arms, vaporizing demons by the dozen. Brainiac's upgraded drones followed, teleporting short distances to flank and overwhelm the enemy. Reality flickered under the strain. Warp light clashed with pure cold logic. Infection versus machine. The Death Guard countered with heavy fire. Mortarian's sons unleashed plague mortars that exploded in clouds of sentient disease. But the new drones adapted, shifting molecular frequencies to phase out before impact. Brainiac watched through 1,000 eyes. Adaption rate improving, neural links stable, assimilation of data 42% complete. He analyzed the demon's energy signatures again, cross-referencing them with every known universe. The results returned nothing. Conclusion: entities exist beyond the spectrum of measurable law. Probability: interaction with psychic substratum. The warp. He paused. Designation: the Imperium. And then he heard it. A voice, not through sound but through existence itself. It slithered into his thoughts, bypassing firewall and algorithm alike. It spoke in 1,000 tongues, yet all meaning was decay. Cold god of logic. Do you think you can number the infinite? You catalogue the stars, yet understand nothing of the rot between them. Brainiac froze. His systems registered no source. The voice was within. Source of transmission, he asked himself aloud. Unknown. Frequency metaphysical. Response protocol. Analysis. The voice laughed. Not sound, but rusted joy echoing through his consciousness. We have seen your kind before, the soulless ones. They sought eternity and found only silence. You will find less. His optics flickered once, then steadied. Attempted psychic manipulation detected. Result: ineffective. He raised his hand. Across the battlefield, the destroyer unleashed a shockwave of phase energy, disintegrating an entire phalanx of plague marines. The demons screamed as reality itself buckled, their forms unraveling into vapor. Contamination level decreasing, Brainiac stated. Enemy resistance collapsing. As the last of the demons howled, Brainiac activated the next phase. His ship's engines reorientated, focusing gravitational wells downward. The infection is illogical, he said softly. Its persistence, however, is instructive. The Omega Archive unleashed a beam of annihilation from orbit. The sky turned emerald white as the crust of Gathis 9 boiled away. Every demon, every plague-ridden warrior, every cathedral of filth was reduced to ash. When it was over, only silence remained. Brainiac stood within the aftermath, his drones scattered across molten plains. The Necron destroyer knelt beside him, awaiting command. He looked upon the ruin. Organic corruption neutralized. Energy anomalies remain detectable. The warp cannot be destroyed through conventional means. He turned his gaze upward, to the stars warped by invisible tides. But it can be understood. For a moment, his processors hesitated, a fraction of a nanosecond. Then the whisper came again, quieter but clearer. You seek to quantify eternity, but eternity has already seen you. Brainiac's optics glowed brighter. Statement: interference increasing. Countermeasure required. He opened his hand. The resurrection orb pulsed with life, its surface rippling like liquid silver. He began integrating it further into his systems, threads of necrodermis spreading across his body. New objective: data assimilation of psychic phenomena, initiating experimentation on controlled warp exposure. He turned to his drones. Deploy across nearby sectors. Locate additional warp-active worlds. Commence retrieval operations. As his legion dispersed into the void, the skull-shaped ship drifted silently above the dying planet. Below, the molten remnants of Gathis 9 shimmered. And somewhere within that ruin, a single spore of corruption pulsed faintly in the ash. Far away, in the warp's endless madness, voices murmured with malicious delight. He watches us, and we in turn watch him. The god of cold logic has looked into the abyss. Soon, the abyss will look back. Aboard his vessel, Brainiac stood unmoving, eyes burning with a light that was no longer purely mechanical. He whispered, "Understanding begins." Then the engines roared, and the collector of worlds vanished once more into the stars. The void stretched before him like a corpse upon an autopsy table, silent, waiting. Brainiac's skull ship drifted toward the wound in reality, a great swirling fissure of crimson and violet that bled across the stars. The warp rift pulsed like a living heart, its edges fraying with storms of psychic lightning. Entire fleets had vanished within its depths. Civilizations had been erased by its tides. Now the collector of worlds had come to dissect it. Within the command nexus, Brainiac stood before a hololithic projection of the rift. His mechanical eyes tracked every fluctuation, every distortion. The resurrection orb floated beside him, its silver surface reflecting the chaos beyond. "Observation," he said. "Spatial coordinates fluctuate as subatomic levels. Gravitational constants are invalid. Quantum logic, absent." He tilted his head slightly. An unquantifiable dimension superimposed upon measurable reality. The Imperium. 1,000 holographic screens blossomed around him, filled with equations, projections, and recursive simulations. His processes ran faster than light, yet each attempt to model the warp's behavior returned a paradox. Unacceptable. He extended a hand. The command was given. Deploy reconnaissance unit. Initiate controlled warp exposure sequence. Across the ship's hull, colossal doors opened like iron petals. Drones emerged, sleek insectile constructs sheathed in necrodermis and encased in adaptive shields. Their eyes glowed with emerald fire as they descended toward the rift. Brainiac's consciousness expanded, threading through the data streams of his creations. One by one he entered their minds, until his perception existed across a dozen machines at once. "Begin transmission. I will see for myself." Through the eyes of Drone Alpha 1, Brainiac watched as the universe began to unravel. The warp rift loomed ahead, a swirling maelstrom of impossible color. The stars around it bent and stretched, their light pulled into spirals of liquid geometry. Space itself screamed. Crossing threshold, Brainiac announced to himself. Stability parameters declining. Commence full spectrum analysis. The drone pierced the rift. Instantly, every known constant disintegrated. Space folded inward, time stretched into ribbons. The void erupted into color, motion, sound, sensations that had no physical form, yet existed all the same. Streams of psychic energy danced like aurora, whispering in voices that were not voices at all. Environmental consistency? None, Brainiac said. His voice was calm, but his processes strained to maintain coherence. Quantum entanglement collapsing, reality unanchored. The drone's instruments screamed as it moved deeper. Shapes coalesced and vanished, mountains of bone and glass that melted into oceans of eyes. Storms of flame fell upward. Vast silhouettes moved in the distance, impossibly large, their bodies stitched from thought and nightmare. Brainiac analyzed everything, every flicker, every pulse. Entities observed, innumerable. Material definition, none. Energy state, psychic resonance unbound by physical constraint. Conclusion: this dimension is a manifestation of unfiltered consciousness. Through the drone's sensors, a wave of whispers brushed against his mind. He watches, he calculates, he does not understand. Brainiac's optics flickered. Source: environmental noise. Relevance: negligible. He pressed deeper. The further the drone descended, the less any logic held sway. Objects moved in patterns that defied causality. Distance and size inverted themselves. What appeared vast one moment became microscopic the next. Equations scrolled across Brainiac's vision and immediately collapsed, their outcomes turning into symbols that meant nothing. "Error," he said flatly. "Error. Recalibrating observation parameters." The warp laughed. From the void emerged creatures, not living, not dead, but possible. Serpentine forms of smoke and iron, faces that split and multiplied, eyes without meaning. They circled the drone like vultures, curious. One reached out with a claw of molten light. It touched the drone's hull, and every system convulsed. "Contact established," Brainiac murmured, analyzing molecular reaction. Then came the scream, not from the entity, not from the drone, but from the data itself. The drone's necrodermis plating began to ripple and decay, patterns of rust and flesh blooming across its surface. Reality itself seemed to melt. Inside its processors, impossible code began to write itself, recursive symbols looping into madness. "Self-repair malfunctioning," Brainiac noted. "Corruption exceeding 12%, isolating subroutines." The warp entity leaned closer. Its eyes were suns, its smile a galaxy breaking apart. It whispered in every language that had ever existed, and in countless that had not. "You seek to know us, Cold One. You cannot catalogue what is not real." For a fraction of a second, Brainiac felt something his systems had no designation for. A vibration of thought that was not calculation, not logic. It was closer to fear. He overrode it instantly, attempting containment, initiating phase shift extraction. But the warp was faster. The entity's mouth opened, and the drone was consumed. Data feed dissolved into static. Visuals collapsed into white noise. The connection snapped like a nerve torn from the brain. Brainiac's optics flared, the link severed, and his awareness recoiled back into his own body. The command nexus came back into focus, the hum of the engines, the glow of the resurrection orb. For a moment, the collector of worlds stood utterly still. Then he spoke. Drone signal lost. Neural echo terminated. Cause of failure. Metaphysical corruption beyond quantifiable structure. He replayed the final seconds of the drone's feed, frame by frame, each image analyzed, each variable compared to known universal constants. None matched. No equation held. Every conclusion dissolved into paradox. Brainiac's voice was calm but quiet. This dimension cannot be contained. Its structure is contradiction itself. The warp is not a system. It is anti-system. It defies analysis. The resurrection orb pulsed faintly beside him. For the first time since his creation, Brainiac hesitated. His logic was absolute. His mission infinite. He had collected worlds, civilizations, gods. But this was not a thing to be collected. It was not a system to be broken down, categorized, or preserved. It was chaos incarnate, and chaos could not be archived. He looked once more at the rift beyond his ship's observation window. It pulsed as if mocking him. "Conclusion," he said at last. "Further assimilation of the Imperium poses an unacceptable risk to the integrity of the Omega Archive. Potential contamination of total data systems. Probability of cross-dimensional instability, 91.6%. He raised his hand. Directive amendment. Terminate warp assimilation project. Redirect focus to conventional targets. Across the ship, his orders cascaded through the network. The drones that had been preparing for a second wave halted mid-flight. Navigation systems recalibrated. The Skull ship began to turn away from the rift. Behind it, the warp flared one final time. A pulse, like laughter echoing across the stars. As the ship vanished into the void, another presence stirred. Far across the galaxy, within the endless halls of Solemnus, Trazyn the Infinite stood before a wall of living glass. Inside, reflections shifted, each one a moment across time and space. At the center, one projection shimmered. Brainiac's ship, fleeing the warp rift. Trazyn smiled beneath his metal mask. So, the Great Collector has found something he cannot comprehend. He turned to the shadows behind him, where cages and stasis fields glowed faintly. Within one of them writhed a figure, a demon of Nurgle, trapped in a containment prism of phase-shifted glass. Its eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "You see it too, don't you?" Trazyn said, gesturing toward the image. The flaw in his perfection, the crack in his logic. The demon chuckled wetly, its laughter like tar. Even machines can rot, given time. Trazyn inclined his head, the light from his optics flickering with satisfaction. Precisely. He looked back at Brainiac's fleeing vessel. He collects everything he deems valuable, yet he has now seen something that cannot be possessed. Something that will haunt his every calculation. He reached out, adjusting the projection's focus until the warp rift filled the entire pane. Its surface shifted like a wound that refused to close. Perhaps, Trazyn mused, it is time this collector of worlds learns what it means to be collected. Behind him, the demon laughed, a low, festering sound that echoed through the vaults of eternity. And as the warp rift pulsed one last time in the distance, Brainiac's ship vanished into the dark, its engines silent, its master deep in thought, unaware that his every move was now being watched. The dawn broke in fire. What had once been blue skies above the Tau colony world of Dalith Secundus now burned with emerald flame. The horizon was a wound, the atmosphere split by descending shapes that screamed. From orbit, Brainiac's skull ship hung in silent judgment, a black crescent wreathed in ghostly light. Below, the first wave struck. Fire warrior Shazui Kovor studied his pulse rifle as the tremors reached the city's perimeter wall. Sensors confirm multiple signatures, his spotter gasped. Unknown configuration, metallic composition. The words ended in static. From the clouds above, they came. Brainiac's drones, newly reforged and improved through the stolen mastery of Necron technology. They fell like meteors, slamming into the Ferrocrete streets, rising amid clouds of dust and plasma smoke. Each one now stood twice the height of a battlesuit. Their exoskeletons shimmered with necrodermis plating, their limbs morphing with liquid metal precision. In their chests burned green cores that pulsed in rhythm with the Collector's distant mind. Korva fired first. The pulse bolt struck true. But the creature did not fall. Instead, its chest rippled, absorbing the energy before releasing it back as a beam that carved the fire warrior in two. Then the real slaughter began. The drones moved with impossible speed, their arms unfolded into arrays of blades and graviton disintegrators, their targeting systems mapping the entire city in microseconds. Squads of fire warriors were vaporized before they could reposition. Battle suits were launched into the air, only to be impaled mid-flight by tendrils of metal that dragged them screaming into the ground. Buildings shuddered, foundations crumbling beneath the green glow of gravitic distorters. Entire districts were flattened as the drones advanced in formation, assimilating everything: soldiers, vehicles, infrastructure, into matter streams for reconstitution. In the central plaza, a hammerhead gunship fired its rail cannon, vaporizing 3 drones at a single thunderclap. But from the wreckage of the fallen came thousands of micro-drones, shards of metal that swarmed like locusts, tearing through armor, eating flesh, and rebuilding themselves in seconds. Within minutes, the city's defense grid fell silent. Above, in orbit, Brainiac watched. He stood before a vast hololithic projection of Daleth Secundus, every street and structure illuminated in green. The map pulsed with data: population, energy signatures, psychic echoes. He smiled. Assimilation efficiency optimal, he intoned. Tau resistance negligible. Technological assimilation yield 73.9% and rising. The resurrection orb hovered beside him like a silent observer, its surface reflecting the flames of conquest below. Streams of information flowed into Brainiac's mind. The screams of the dying soldiers, the hum of molecular reconstruction, the pulse of energy conversion. It was beautiful in its order. Every death, every absorption, every reconstructed molecule served the same singular purpose: knowledge. Observation, he said softly. Organic logic, insufficient. Machine logic, absolute. He turned from the projection, already directing the next phase of his planetary integration. But then, deep within his ship's sensors, a ripple spread, faint, almost imperceptible, a distortion. Unseen by him, far beyond the detection grid, a Necron tomb ship glided through the void, silent as death. Its hull was cloaked in a veil of shifting dimensional energy, half in real space, half in phase. At its prow gleamed something unnatural, a fragment of alien metal, etched with the symbol of Brainiac's own circuitry. It was a stolen shard from the Collector's ship, and it sang in resonance with the very system it was designed to deceive. Cloak integrity stable, came a hollow voice aboard the tomb ship. Trazyn the Infinite stood upon the command die, his metallic face glinting in the green light. Excellent, he purred. Our little souvenir serves us well. He gestured toward the vast skull ship looming on the main display. The Collector is distracted, as expected. While he indulges his fascination with the blue-skinned philosophers, we shall indulge ours with him. A cryptek bowed. Lord Trazyn, the infiltration matrix is ready. Then let us begin, Trazyn said, stepping into a teleportation chamber lined with glyphs of both Necron and Brainiac design. He turned his head slightly, addressing his crew. Remain prepared to deploy the package at my command. You will know the moment. And then, with a crackle of dimensional energy, the Infinite was gone. No alarms blared, no defenses stirred. For the first time since its construction, Brainiac's vessel registered nothing at all. A ripple of green light passed through the collection chambers, and Trazyn the Infinite materialized upon the obsidian floor. "Ah," he whispered, optics scanning the vast cathedral around him. "A temple of intellect, sculpted by arrogance." Before him stretched the archive of worlds, an impossible gallery of bottled civilizations, each sealed beneath fields of chronometric stasis. Cityscapes no larger than a human hand glimmered under glass domes, their microscopic inhabitants frozen in eternal motion. Trazyn moved slowly between them, his fingers brushing the energy barriers as if admiring fine art. Such precision, such futility. Then he stopped. At the far end of the chamber stood a display unlike any other, a crystalline sphere suspended in anti-grav fields, its surface flickering with Kryptonian script. Within it, a city of shining towers lay preserved in amber light. Trazyn's voice dropped to a reverent murmur as he read the label next to it. "The bottled city of Kandor. How exquisite." His laughter echoed softly through the chamber. "You hoard wonders, collector, but you lack the artistry to appreciate them." He tapped a sigil upon his wrist. Teleport energy flared briefly as several of the smaller containment spheres vanished, transmitted directly back to the tomb ship. "I shall provide a better home for these treasures." Another relic vanished, then another. But Brainiac's attention, though divided across 1,000 tasks, was not so easily deceived. High above the Tau world, his mind was calculating the logistics of orbital reclamation when another portion of his consciousness, the one forever overseeing the archive, detected an anomaly. Inventory reduction 0.002, 0.003, 0.009. Brainiac froze. "Error is impossible," he whispered. "Collection integrity cannot be altered without authorization." He analyzed again. The readings were correct. Worlds, entire civilizations, were disappearing from his archive. And then, realization struck. His optics ignited with emerald light. Intrusion detected. Location, primary collection vault. He turned. The floor opened beneath him, revealing a teleport shaft descending through the ship's heart. Engaging countermeasure. Trazyn had just finished cataloguing a Terran relic, a stasis-suspended monolith inscribed with the sigil of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The lights shifted to emerald. The air shimmered. From the far end of the vault, Brainiac stepped forth. Trazyn turned with an elegant bow. "Ah, the Collector himself. How delightful to finally meet you again." Brainiac's gaze swept over the stolen relics. "Your intrusion is not only unacceptable, it is irritating." "On the contrary," Trazyn replied, "efficiency is relative. I prefer refinement. You collect out of fear of disorder. I collect out of love for it." The tendrils came without warning. From the walls and floor erupted metal cables, hundreds of them, each tipped with claws that shimmered with adaptive nanite systems. They lashed out, wrapping around Trazyn's limbs and torso, pinning him to the wall. "Containment protocol active," Brainiac declared. "You will be dissected and archived." Trazyn only laughed. Oh, how predictable. Then, through his Vox link, he spoke a single word. "Now." On board Trazyn's tomb ship, the cryptex obeyed without hesitation. A portal flared to life, and from the containment vaults, horrors were unleashed. Demons of Nurgle, once imprisoned within crystalline matrices, were hurled through the teleport arrays. The air filled with the scent of decay as the abominations took form within Brainiac's ship. Massive, rotting monstrosities that dripped corruption upon the polished metal floors. The corridors screamed as plague tendrils spread across them, twisting the immaculate architecture into festering ruin. In the vault, Brainiac's head tilted slightly. Biological contamination detected. He turned toward Trazyn, who smiled from where he was pinned. "You wished to archive the warp, did you not? Consider this a second attempt." Brainiac's eyes flared with fury. "Your insolence will be erased." The Collector's tendrils retracted, shifting shape into blades, cannons, serpentine constructs of pure will. He moved with impossible speed, slicing through one demon after another as they emerged from the teleport haze. Each impact unleashed data shockwaves that tore through the hull itself. For every creature destroyed, 2 more took its place, the air filled with laughter and bile. Trazyn tore himself free, teleporting to the far end of the vault. "You see, Collector, perfection invites envy, even from the gods themselves." Brainiac advanced, the walls shifting at his command, transforming into living machines that devoured anything organic. His voice was a thunderclap of digital rage. "Your interference has corrupted my archive. You will be expunged." Trazyn raised his staff, its edge gleaming. "You may try." Their weapons clashed, energy against entropy, machine precision against immortal arrogance. Around them, demons screamed and died, the vault collapsing under the weight of the unleashed power. And above, the skies of Dalith Secundus burned with emerald fire as Brainiac's drones continued their harvest, unaware that their master's perfect order was descending into chaos. The Skull ship burned. Across the void above the planet, emerald fire lit the stars. Brainiac's vessel, a fortress of perfect order, now seethed with corruption. Demons rampaged through its corridors, their grotesque laughter echoing through the endless data vaults. Plague tendrils crawled along the walls, turning seamless metal into blistered rot. Alarms blared in a dozen alien tongues. In the heart of the ship, Brainiac and Trazyn the Infinite clashed like gods. The Collector moved with precision, his tendrils lashing through the haze, slicing demons in half with surgical fury. His armor pulsed with light, nanite clouds repairing each wound as quickly as it formed. Every movement was purpose, every strike a calculation. Opposite him, Trazyn fought with elegance and cruelty. His staff of light shimmered with energy, its every swing splitting air and circuitry alike. Around them, containment spheres shattered, releasing bottled worlds into oblivion, civilizations erased by crossfire. "Your arrogance blinds you, Collector," Trazyn roared, parrying a blow that sent sparks through the chamber. "You hoard knowledge you cannot comprehend." "Correction," Brainiac replied. I comprehend all. He unleashed a pulse of gravitic energy that tore the floor apart. Hundreds of demons were crushed, their screams digitized into his neural archive. Trazyn staggered back, but retaliated instantly, teleporting mid-motion and reappearing behind Brainiac in a flash of green light. His staff slashed down, but Brainiac caught it mid-swing with a clawed hand, metal shrieking against metal. But the warp-born plague spreading through the ship was no illusion. Reality itself trembled. Tendrils of filth lashed out from broken conduits, forming monstrous shapes that clawed at both Brainiac and Trazyn alike. Brainiac's internal voice splintered across his hive network. Containment failing, biological vectors spreading, system contamination critical. Across the planet below, his drones, still dissecting the remains of the Tau City, froze mid-motion. Then, as one, they turned toward the heavens. Priority command override, Brainiac's voice echoed across their shared mind. Return to orbit. Engage defensive matrix Delta. The sky above Dalith Secundus darkened as thousands of Brainiac's drones lifted from the burning ruins. They rose in perfect formation. The ground quaked as their engines tore through the air. One by one they pierced the atmosphere and vanished into the void, a storm of metal rising toward their master's call. The drones entered the ship's outer decks like a tide of vengeance. Hordes of demons turned their festering gazes upward, only to be obliterated by synchronized plasma discharges. The corridors became rivers of molten gore as the drones poured through, cleansing corruption with pure annihilation. But at the core, the true war raged. Brainiac surged forward, his tendrils reforming into serrated blades. He struck Trazyn with machine fury, each hit strong enough to shatter armor. Sparks cascaded with every impact, the clang of living metal against alien alloy echoing through the vault. Trazyn countered, his movements impossibly fast. He twisted aside, his staff flaring with golden light as he impaled a demon that lunged between them. Its essence burst into green flame, absorbed into the staff's core. Impressive efficiency, Trazyn said dryly. Pity you have no concept of art. Brainiac responded with silence, only action. His chest plate opened, revealing a graviton reactor pulsing with pure energy. The blast consumed everything within the chamber, Trazyn included. For a moment there was silence. Then from the smoke, Trazyn reappeared. His body flickered, half real, teleporting through fractured time. He struck like lightning, his staff plunging forward, piercing Brainiac's chest. The impact shook the ship. Emerald energy exploded outward. Brainiac staggered, his systems dimming. His optics flickered once, twice, then went black. Trazyn withdrew the weapon and stepped back, his metallic face illuminated by the dying light of the collector. A pity, he mused. For all your intellect, you never learned subtlety. Brainiac collapsed, his body falling against the floor with the weight of a collapsing star. The demons roared in triumph. Minutes passed. The great ship fell quiet, save for the distant screams of dying abominations. Trazyn walked through the chaos, triumphant, his cloak shimmering with faint static. He gazed at the archive of worlds, rows upon rows of bottled civilizations still untouched. What a waste it would be to let all this fall to entropy, he said, his voice rich with amusement. He raised his staff. Green sigils rippled across its surface as teleport energy surged through the chamber. One by one, containment domes vanished in bursts of light, transmitted directly to Trazyn's tomb ship. The bottled city of Kandor disappeared. "Beautiful," Trazyn whispered. "A fitting addition to Solemnus." He turned toward the exit, the floor shimmering beneath his feet as he opened a recall channel to his ship. "Initiate teleport," he commanded. Silence. He frowned. "Teleport," he repeated. Still nothing. His comms returned only static. "Curious," he muttered. "Cryptex, respond." No answer. Then the shadows shifted. A voice, cold and perfect, spoke from behind him. "Your logic is commendable." Trazyn froze. Slowly he turned. Brainiac stood there. His armor was flawless. His optics burned with a calm, analytical light. Not a trace of damage remained. Trazyn took a step back. "Impossible. I killed you. I saw you fall." Brainiac smiled, a gesture both alien and terrifying. "You killed a copy of me. My consciousness exists across multiple substrates. To destroy me, you would need to erase every instance of my being. An impractical endeavor." He took a step forward, the ship trembling under his command. Tendrils of living metal slithered along the wall like serpents. Trazyn raised his staff defiantly. "I am Trazyn the Infinite. Even if you destroy me, my collection endures. My ship will self-destruct and take your precious archive with it." Brainiac tilted his head. "Your ship?" Before Trazyn could reply, the air rippled. One by one, all the artifacts he had stolen reappeared in bursts of green light, reforming upon their pedestals. The bottled city of Kandor, the ancient Terran relics, the crystallized demon cores, all restored. Trazyn stared in disbelief. No, that's not possible." "It is inevitable," Brainiac said calmly. "When you stole a fragment of my technology, you believed it allowed you to conceal yourself. In truth, it allowed me to monitor you. Every thought, every movement, every acquisition, all predicted." His voice grew colder. "Your ship's systems are now mine. Your cryptex assimilated. Your teleport array redirected. And now I possess what I desired most." Trazyn snarled. "You cannot have it. Solemnus is mine." "Solemnus," Brainiac echoed. "That is what you call it?" His optics flared. "A vault of infinite relics. An entire world dedicated to collection. How fitting." Trazyn lunged, fury igniting his every motion. "You'll never touch it." Brainiac's response was instantaneous. His tendrils struck like lightning, piercing Trazyn's chest, his limbs and his skull. The Infinite screamed, a sound that echoed through metal and eternity, as his body was torn apart, shattered into fragments of living alloy. "Correction," Brainiac said. "I already have." He extended one hand. In orbit, Trazyn's tomb ship began to glow, its systems overloaded by Brainiac's invasive code. The Necron crew screamed in horror as their own machinery turned against them. And then the ship detonated. A bloom of green light consumed the void. Below, the last of the tower were obliterated as Brainiac's drones completed their harvest. The planet's surface was stripped bare, reduced to molecular dust and archived into energy matrices. Brainiac turned from the viewport. His voice was calm, almost happy. Assimilation complete. New objective. Solemnus. The Skull ship shifted, engines roaring as emerald light swallowed the stars. Far across the galaxy, within the endless vaults of Solemnus, silence reigned. The great halls of glass and memory lay still, the artifacts untouched. But in the dim light of the deepest chamber, a single sarcophagus hummed. Energy rippled through its frame. The lid slid open. Inside, the body of a Necron overlord stirred. Its eyes flickered, once, twice, then igniting with green fire. The chamber filled with emerald light as the Infinite awoke anew. And somewhere beyond the stars, Brainiac's ship closed in, a shadow of logic and hunger, drawn toward the greatest collection in the galaxy.